So Zuanquan, right? So first, just work on uppercut. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. Yeah, make sure one hand, protect your chin, okay, and through the other hand. Right, so Zuanquan and uppercut they're very similar. That's first.
Giants creep.
Uppercut. Okay, this is just like a simplified version of Zuanquan. Okay, when you do uppercut, you need to think about how to generate power. Okay, power is not generated just by punching the arm. Okay, there's no power there. It's pure arm strength. Okay, muscles of the arm, like this. 1, 2, 1, 2, no good. Okay, you need to engage your whole body. How do you engage your whole body? So when you punch, your body needs to create a little circle. Okay, from this angle. So if your body don't create that circle, it will be just 1, 2, 1, 2. 1, 2. So when you do 1, 2, like this, 1, 2, okay, where does the force come from? Okay, when you're trying to use your arm strength, the force comes from you first pushing off the ground with your back foot. So if I punch my right hand using pure arm strength, okay, I cannot just use the arm, right? I try to engage the whole body. What do? I push. I push, you see? I push. So, at this stage, the force starts with pushing the ground and then gives you momentum. Okay, like this. Okay, it feels like you're engaging the whole body. Okay, but it's not really whole body strength. It's not really whole body mechanics. It's more just the arm muscle on its own creating this movement, and to amplify the effect of this movement, you add this initial push, right, to amplify this effect. Okay, which means it's really when you think about it, it's an isolated way of doing a punch. Okay, so it's here doing something, and then the foot is pushing to give you more momentum. Now, in order to engage the whole body, okay, the force doesn't start from here, and it doesn't start from pushing off the ground. It starts from the center of your body. Okay, before we talk about the Dantian force. Okay, let's just talk about the body, the physical body. Okay, let's first ignore Dantian. Okay, when we simplify the punch, okay, we're not talking about, okay, we're doing Zuanquan like the traditional way. Okay, we're saying that we're using the modified version, more the modern way of doing Zuanquan. So now, when you do Zuanquan, okay, there's a circle, right? Zuan is drilling. Okay, and drilling is usually in Xingyi associated with an upward drilling motion. Right? Xingyi don't just use the drilling motion like forward drilling motion. Sometimes they do, but for Zuanquan specifically, it's upward drilling motion. Okay? And so therefore, you need to create a little circle. Not only that your arm has to create a little twist, little spiral, you also need to create drawing a little circle, arc. Okay, now drawing a little circle, it has to start somewhere, right? It's not just your arm drawing that circle, then again it becomes an isolated movement. Okay, so your arm drawing that circle, it's a way of stimulating your center to create that little circle or that little rotation. First, with your waist. So, beginning, the waist plays a very important role in rotating your body. Okay, so when you do Zuanquan first, you have to think, how do you turn your waist? Not how do you push off the ground. Okay, pushing off the ground is a step after you initiated the waist movement. Okay, so to help the waist to turn, right? Let's say you stand here and you're just turning the waist. Then the waist turning itself, this motion itself, has no purpose. Right? The purpose is to aid this upward force of the punch, of the Zuanquan or the uppercut. Okay, so yes, you are doing the uppercut, right? But more so, it's not you're directly thinking about, let me do the uppercut with my arm. It's more that, okay, how do I initiate the motion? How do I initiate the force? It has to come from the waist. So how do I help the waist, stimulate the waist to turn, to rotate by using the hand to stimulate this rotation. Just like when we do Qigong, right? In order for the Dantian to expand and to contract, we use the hands as the external source of stimulation, right? We don't just stand here and say, okay, Dantian expand, Dantian contract. Dantian wouldn't be doing anything. Okay, so this is external stimulation. And same with, if you're on your waist to generate force, rotating the body, this is the stimulating thing, the external stimulation. Okay, at the same time, it's a punch, right? Uppercut or Zuanquan. Okay, so it serves two purposes. One is to stimulate the rotation of the waist, and second is for the punch. Right, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. Okay, that's first. And second, if you only use the waist, use the waist, your body is going to be stiff. Okay, just watch me. Okay, I only engage my waist. I'm turning, right? Turning my waist, but my body is very rigid. Why? Because my upper body and my lower body are not engaged. So I'm only engaging the center, the waist. Okay, so for the center, this waist, okay, to have good power, to have good rotation, we also need reinforcement from the top and from the lower body, upper body, lower body. So what is the upper body? Shoulders, midsection, upper section, lower section. Lower section you could think of as your feet, or maybe from the knees to your feet. Okay, that's the lower section. So it means the upper section and the lower section have to be also engaged. The three sections all have to be engaged. So it means when I threw that punch, you see my upper body, upper section have to be engaged. Right, so when we do Baba, for example, upper section need to be engaged. Right, so upper section has to also turn. Yeah, and also lower section. What is the lower section doing? Lower section, first you have to stabilize the lower section. You cannot be, let me also turning the lower section. If everything turns, it's not a stable structure. Right, if something turns, something else has to be stable. Right, to maintain the overall integrity of the structure. Okay, so it means that your feet has to be relatively grounded, rooted. Okay, and there is force pushing up the ground. But pushing up the ground is not the initial action. It's not the initial motion. And also it's not an active motion. It's a passive motion. What I mean by active motion and passive motion. Active motion means that you're trying to push out the foot. Push the foot from the ground. That's an active motion. It's not something else that's causing the foot to push off the ground. It's just the foot itself is pushing off the ground. That's an active motion. Passive motion is that the foot is pushing off the ground because something else causing the foot to push off the ground. So when you're pushing off the ground, it's a passive motion. Why? Because when you're turning here, turning the upper body, your force is mobilized from the center. And when the force is mobilized from the center, it has to go somewhere. Right? For one thing, it goes to the arm, to the shoulders, to the elbows, to the wrist, to the hand. Okay, that's upward, going upward. And also from the center, force is getting mobilized, it has to go downward. So now it goes down to your foot. And so this force gets to your foot and pushes out the ground. The force itself, not pushing your whole body out the ground. Just the force is getting pushed out the ground. Okay, so everything starts from the center of the body. Right, force starts from the center of the body, but requires other parts of the body, upper section and lower section, to stimulate the center. Right, the center by itself cannot do anything on its own. It requires external stimulation to stimulate the center, causing your waist to turn, which drives force upward and also drives force downward. Okay, and the force that's going downward, it gets to your foot and interacts with the ground and bounces back up. Right, and the force that's going upward, it goes to your punch from the center. And the one that goes down to the ground and bounces itself up naturally, it would interact the force that's directly going upward. So you have a force from the center directly going upward. And you have another force from the center, first going down, interact with the ground, and naturally bounces back up and reinforces the force that's directly going upward. So another force going indirectly upward. Right, so one directly goes up, another force goes down and then comes up, and causing the direct force, amplify the direct force. Okay, so two forces going on here. Okay, now another issue. Okay, when I say force going up and force going down, two forces. Now the force that goes down is not so easy. Okay, I say force go down, are you able to feel the force going down? And now are you able to then feel the force bounces back naturally? Is that easy to feel that? Okay, how are you able to feel that? Maybe you already do, maybe you don't. For the force to go down, right, you need to have qi going down through your legs, to your feet. Okay, qi has to go down to open the pathway. Okay, in your legs. Okay, and if you don't feel qi, okay, it's not like everybody's going to feel qi, right? And so if you don't feel qi going down, okay, there's another mechanism which is your quad. Okay, right here, your hips, hip joints. Okay, the hip joints need to be relatively open. Okay, if this point is closed, force will not be able to go down. Okay, if qi is not going down, force is not able to go down. So you need to have one or the other at least. Okay, for the force to go downward. Okay, so it looks like I'm just turning the waist. Okay, but it's more than turning the waist. Turning the waist itself wouldn't drive the force downward. At best, it drives the force upward. With this punch. Okay, so to drive the force downward, qi has to go through, or the quad has to open, like opening a gate, and which allows force to go down, or maybe both. Okay, otherwise there's no condition for the force to go down, then there's no force going down. And then all you're doing is this upper body movement, which is not bad. Okay, at least you're not just isolating the arms, you're not just pushing like this, you're not pushing like this. You are using the upper body, right, at least. But if you're able to engage the upper body and lower body, so then upper body, lower body coordinating will give you more power. Okay, and also this punch, right, again, for force to properly go through the punch, your shoulders have to be relatively open, or qi has to go through your arms. Okay, either way or both ways. Okay, if your force doesn't go through the inside of the arms, through your shoulders, then the rotation of the waist is only causing like a pure external movement. Okay, I mean the force transfers externally. It doesn't transfer like through the deeper layers of the body. So it's like externally and there's some force going through. Okay, but it doesn't really go deeper inside. The force doesn't travel deeper inside. So by opening the arms, the joints here, right, or having qi to go through the arms, allows you to go deeper. Okay, the difference is if force goes through the external layers, you look something like this. I'm turning on my waist, something like this. Okay, but then if I go deeper, right, so when you go deeper, your movements become less obvious, okay, less visual, okay, and movements become more subtle. It's going deeper. Okay, so now you don't need to have so much obvious movement from the outside. Okay, deeper. Okay, and also beneficial when we think about in a sparring situation or practical fighting situation where you want to minimize your movements, right? You don't want your movements to be so big. When your movements are so big, you're also open to get hit easily, right? So you don't want your movement to be like this, 1, 2. If you don't hit your opponent, you get countered, you get hit back. Okay? Yeah, because your movements can be so big when you try to create this turning, okay, from the center. So now, right, movements are more subtle. So even when I'm punching, attacking, my center line stay here. Yeah, I stay within a very small space. Yeah, I don't create big space. I don't create big space. Small space. Right, small space. Okay, that's first. Right. Yeah, and then next, engage your Dantian. Slower. Yeah, so when you engage your Dantian, your physical body becomes less important. Okay, you don't think so much about, okay, how do I transfer the force through my shoulders to my hands? How do I transfer the force down to my feet to the ground and bounces back, right, by opening the quad? Those things become less relevant. Right, because if you're still focused on these things, you're focusing not on the center of your body. Right, you're focusing on the physical body. Even the deeper layers of the physical body, you're focusing still on the physical body. Right, and Dantian is within this physical body. We cannot just say Dantian is completely non-physical. Right, it's an energetic component, but it's within the physical body. So we cannot say that Dantian is purely energetic. It's both energetic and physical because it's contained within the physical body. Okay, So therefore, when we engage the Dantian, it means that the mind has to be completely focused on your center. Right? You can't really focus on here, feet, hands. You could, but it would be secondary. Okay, not the primary focus. Right? If there's no Dantian, there's no center. Okay, then the mind cannot focus on the center if there's no Dantian. Right, so then the center to you, if there's no Dantian, it would be just the core and the waist. Right, that would be your understanding of your center. Right, but over time as you get deeper, okay, then you develop the energy within the center, within the physical body, then it becomes your Dantian, right, which is different center. It's still within this area, but it's different than just waist and the core. Right, so now focus on the center, turn. Yeah, so then when you go deeper into your Dantian center, not your waist center or your core center, then the movements become even more subtle. Right? Because these things are just secondary